Hi everyone. Welcome back to Storytime Recap. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2019, Serenity. Without any further, let's get started. Every day on Plymouth Island, Captain Dill takes his ship, the Serenity, out to try to catch a legendary tuna fish that he calls Justice. His obsession with this fish is so intense that it interferes with his ability to conduct business. When Justice grabs the bait, rather than giving the rod to the tourists who paid for the fishing excursion, Dill tries to fish it himself, ignoring his buddy Duke's advice. Dill even threatens tourists with his knife if they try to grab the rod from him, which makes them refuse to pay for the trip. The worst thing is that after the long wait and line struggles, Justice manages to get away. The scene then shifts to Reed, who was watching the entire drama from the shore. It is so frantic to get to Dill that he puts on a suit and crosses the water to get closer, but he is also ignored. At the end of the trip, when the tourists leave without paying, Duke worries that he won't get paid today. But Dill knows how to obtain some cash. He goes to see his friend Constance, and after they have a good time together, she lends him the money he needs. Since he is thinking of firing Duke and replacing him, Dill uses the opportunity to inquire about her son. After that, Dill goes to Jack's bar for a drink and then goes to pay Duke. He also asks him to come back the following morning for another ride, but this time they aren't taking any clients. Instead, they're just going after Justice. Duke believes it is Urs that fault for wasting gas on a leisure trip when they don't have enough money, but Dill doesn't care because he saw Justice today, so they must try again. In the evening, Dill comes home and, while drinking, he apologizes to his kid for not being able to catch the fish again. At the same time that Dill recalls the times he spent fishing with his kid, Patrick, his son, is at his mother's house looking through his father's photos and reliving the same memories they have. The following morning, Dill is driving his truck to the docks and he fails to notice Reed staring at him from a passing bus. Dill and Duke go on another trip to obtain Justice, but they don't even get to see the fish. After they return to the island, Dill accuses Duke of bringing him bad luck ever since his wife died. Duke is fired and leaves, and neither man notices Constance looking from her window. In the evening, when Dill goes out to drink with Jack, Jack suggests that Dill consult a therapist, but Dill ignores his advice. Karen, Dill's ex-wife, who he hasn't seen in years, abruptly interrupts their chat. Karen calls Dill and requests a quiet place to talk. Dill takes her to his boat, and as Constance observes from her window once more, Karen acknowledges that Dill was right. Her new husband continued to drink excessively and become aggressive, striking both her and Patrick. Although Dill advises her to file for divorce, she is unable to do so since her husband is a wealthy and influential guy who would not allow her to leave. When they quarrel, Patrick hides in his room and plays computer games to divert himself. His professors claim that he has a special talent, but he appears to be emotionally unstable. She is here specifically because she wants to save Patrick, and she needs Dill's assistance to do so. Her husband will be arriving on the island shortly, and she wants to plan a trip on Dill's boat. She is willing to pay $2 million if Dill gets her husband intoxicated and throws him to the sharks. Dill is shocked by what he hears and forces Karen out before leaving, not realizing Reed running towards the shore and missing him once more. When he gets home in the morning with a ton of fish to sell, Constance is waiting for Dill. She wants to know more about Karen, but Dill refuses to answer her questions and instead goes swimming at sea. As soon as he falls into the ocean, Dill hears voices, including Karen's husband yelling at her and Patrick telling him that he wants him to do something. He also sees Patrick swimming with him, but as he reaches out to him, Dill wakes up at his house table and touches the wet surface. At the same moment, Patrick is in his room coming from under the covers after playing a video game and discovers some water on his desk. The images that Dill saw in his dream startle him, and he asks out loud if his son is out there. When Frank, Karen's husband, gets to the island that day, he immediately meets Karen in the hotel room and asks her to take off her robe so he can examine her body. When Frank notices a scratch on Karen's leg, he removes his belt as a kind of punishment since he doesn't like what it might mean. In the meantime, Dill visits Lois' fishing store to pay off his debt and purchase some new hooks. Lois tells him that everyone on the island is aware of Karen and the ways Frank has been abusing her, and a man named Reed is looking for him, but Dill ignores her and walks away. When Dill arrives to his yacht, Frank and Karen also there, and Karen refers to him as Mr. Dill rather than John, since Frank isn't sure of his true identity. When Frank criticizes Dill for not agreeing to go fishing, Dill declines once more, citing his lack of a sailor as reason because it is illegal to take tourists without one. Frank, however, believes that everyone has a price, and he promises to return the next day at 7 o'clock a.m. to start on that journey. Before leaving, he shows Dill the gun he always keeps with him and asks him to be there for him. Dill, who doesn't care about Frank, sets sail to seek justice once more. Reed gets to the docks too late and misses Dill, but he sees that something is amiss when he checks his watch. There seems to be a 20-second lapse in his scheduled time. Even though Dill doesn't find justice today, he does catch some nice fish to sell at the market when he returns. Following that, he stays the night with Constance, who is eager on finding out about Karen and warns him that he must decide between saving the woman and catching the tuna in his head. After that, Dill goes to the market, where Duke approaches him. Duke has heard rumors that Frank is willing to pay $10,000 for the fishing trip, and he explains that they truly need the money, that he needs to help his grandson, and the Serenity needs to be rebuilt. And Duke learned from Constance that he was fired out of sympathy, which he detests. Because this is a very special opportunity that they cannot pass up, Dill agrees to take Frank on the journey under the condition that Duke watches over his captain to deliver him from temptation. When they arrive, Frank and Karen are waiting at the docks. Dill tells Karen in private that he will only take Frank fishing and nothing else. So Karen tries to talk him out of it by telling him how Frank hurts Patrick, and that she knows Dill talks to Patrick constantly, and that Patrick can hear him through his computer screen because they are connected. Dill ignores Karen's request and leaves with Duke and Frank. While fishing, Frank tries to talk to him, but finally he brings up his stepson. He considers Patrick weird and complains the fact that the kid won't come out to play sports with him and would rather use his computer. Frank felt that Patrick was involved in illicit activities on the dark web, but in reality, he was merely playing a video game about fishing. Patrick threatened to murder him if he didn't catch fish all day, and Dill surprised himself by completing that sentence alongside Frank. There is also discussion concerning the lack of police on the island, but it is cut short when a shark eats their bait. Frank tries to pull the shark in and slips on the deck, but Dill resists temptation. He and Duke assist Frank in capturing the shark. Karen is upset to see them return with her husband. As Frank goes to wash, she goes to Dill to pay him and tries to talk him out of it because Frank wants to go fishing again tomorrow. Duke hears Karen explain that Patrick came up with the idea and that their son needs him to do this because he wants justice, but before they can finish speaking, Frank returns and seizes Karen. Reed watches a storm that is approaching from the docks, while Duke asks Dill to explain the purpose of the temptation. Dill takes Duke to the bar and opens up to him about how he was once a soldier called John, but after the war, his mind was too damaged and Karen left him for Frank. As a result, Dill believes he never really returned. When he hears of the $10 million offer, Duke reminds Dill that he needs to catch the fish in his mind, but not murder a man. After Duke has left, Dill heads to his boat to think in the rain. Suddenly, he hears Patrick's voice calling for him, and Constance watches him from the window. When Karen arrives to show Dill that she hasn't thrown away the ring he gave her because she hasn't stopped thinking about him, she kisses him. Dill then agrees to kill Frank in the morning, but only after Karen brings Patrick to him. Karen agrees and tells him that she is still the same girl he fell in love with, so Dill ends up spending a lot of time with her on the boat. When he notices the scars Frank left on her back, Karen points out that they are both damaged in different ways. After they are finished, Dill says he beat Frank and throws Karen out. He then begins speaking to Patrick, who he claims can hear him, and promises his son that he will do this for him so he can go outside at last. When he gets home, Dill finds Reed waiting for him. Reed introduces himself as a salesman for a fishing supply company. Dill doesn't understand why Reed has come for a sale at 2:30 in the morning, so Reed explains that he's tried during the day and has missed him every time. He also says that he already knows Dill has a big day tomorrow because he knows nearly everything about him. In his suitcase, Reed has the latest sonic fish finder and Dill is able to try it out for free for a week. The finder will be especially helpful tomorrow, and Reed is confident that it will help Dill catch the fish because he is the rule. Dill doesn't understand it and becomes even more shocked when Reed urges him to catch the fish, but not murder that man. He then threatens Reed with his knife until he gives him the reason for what he knows. As Patrick keeps playing on his computer, Reed explains that he is only playing as part of the game because that is what Plymouth Island is exactly. A multi-option game with the creator's favorite activity being fishing. The rule is that you have to catch a specific fish, which is Dill's compulsion. However, it appears that he is turning fishing into killing a man because the rules state that no one dies on Plymouth Island. As a representative of the current program, he questions why the creator changed the rules. Unexpectedly, Dill awakens in his bed earlier than normal and finds that he cannot move until the alarm clock chimes. Reflecting on his conversation with Reed, he pulls out a few maps and observes that they all depict the same thing, Plymouth Island. After a brief swim, Dill drives his truck to the middle of the road and tries to talk to Patrick. He says he'll kill Frank and understands that he doesn't even remember how he got to this island. But he still remembers his fishing days with his son, and he came back mad from war, and that's why he thinks Patrick made Dill mad to catch the fish here. Occasionally, Dill sees himself dead on the sand, but before he can interpret the visions, Constance's son Samson interrupts his monologue. Dill has always considered Samson lucky, so he takes his presence as a positive sign, but he still rejects Duke's job because of new rules. Following that, Dill visits Lois, who gives him some unique baits that Reed dropped as a test. Dill has some strange logical questions, but Lois is unable to respond.
What's that?
Dill then calls Reed's business using his card to make sure he is who he claims to be, but he abruptly ends the conversation after leaving a brief thank you note. On his way to the boat, Dill meets Jack and presses him with the philosophical questions once more, but Jack is also stumped by them, proving they're NPC. At home in his room, Patrick opens a box and pulls out his father's knife. In the hotel on the island, when Karen awakens, she finds a bleeding Frank in the bathroom due to an attack. This can be explained by the fact that Duke is waiting for Dill to reveal that he paid a thug to break Frank's hands in order to keep Dill away from temptation. When Dill becomes enraged, he kicks Duke out of his boat, ignoring his advice to see a doctor. In the meantime, Karen sets up a plan, and since she can't let this chance pass, she tends Frank's injuries and assures him that he is still fit to go fishing. She also continues to give him wine to ease his pain, which causes him to become rather inebriated. After getting some alcohol at Jack's, Dill drives away and runs into Reed, who assures him that he is not insane because they are the stuff that dreams are made of. Reed doesn't know who made the game, but Dill does. Patrick did it. Patrick was his son, and he made the game with the intention of killing the man who hurts him and getting his father back. Reed is aware of this and informs Dill about it as his new compulsion involves killing Frank. Therefore, if that is the new rule, he should help. Dill dashes back to the boat and joins Karen, who tells him that she has disposed of Frank's gun, while Constance and Duke observe them from afar. The group sails in the boat, and as Dill prepares everything for fishing, but to his surprise they find Samson has hidden himself. Since the boy is watching, they are unable to just dump Frank into the ocean, but thankfully, a solution reveals itself when justice catches the bait. Dill remembers that he has to decide between the fish and the woman, so he hands Frank the rod. Since Frank is too frail to manage such a hazardous monster, justice pulls him into the water, making it appear as though it was an accident. At the same time, Patrick hearing Frank rage at Karen, so he takes his father's knife and leaves his room, only to return a moment later covered in blood. News of Patrick killing Frank quickly spread across the country's media outlets. Karen explains that she defended herself from Frank's abuse, and that her biological father had died in the war. Since the murder, Patrick has been silent and retreated inside himself. On the island, Karen affirms that she and Patrick still have love for Dill, and that he will eventually be allowed to see his son again. Following Karen's disappearing, Dill answers a ringing public phone and speaks with Patrick, who says he will alter the game to see him. As Patrick, who is sitting inside a jail, breaks into a smile, then Dill's surroundings start to change. Sometime later, Patrick shows up on the island to meet up with her father, allowing the father and son to go fishing once more.
you.